webinar for today is entitled Cisco Live Sessions, Introduction to Cybersecurity, Chapter 1, The Need for Cybersecurity for Batch 2. So this webinar is organized by the Digital Learners Project of the ILCDP, or the ICT Literacy and Competency Development Bureau of the Department of Information and Communications Technology, in partnership with Cisco Networking Academy. The Introduction to Cybersecurity course is designed to explore cybersecurity as a potential specialization in an IT career. These materials, or course materials rather, will assist participants in developing the skills necessary to do the following. So firstly, to understand the importance of safe online behaviors. Next is to describe the different types of malware and attacks. And lastly, to describe the protection strategies used by the organizations against attacks. This webinar is for all our adult project beneficiaries from the different schools, SDOs, LGUs, and those who have signed up in our Facebook page. I am Joanna De Leon of the Digital Learners Project, and I will be your course officer for today's webinar. May I call on Ms. May Razo of the Digital Learners Project to give her opening remarks.
Good morning, everyone. To our participants, beloved gadget recipients, and Facebook page sign-ups, especially the teachers, students, and gadget beneficiaries. I hope everyone is in excellent physical and mental health. I am pleased to welcome you to this webinar on behalf of the ICT Literacy and Competency Development Bureau, or ILCDB, of the Department of Information and Communications Technology. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to attend today. You are aware that the goals of ILCDB's Digital Learners Project include achieving the objectives of this webinar. This project's goal is to make accessible ICT education training available to students, instructors, and non-teaching personnel and/or government workers nationwide, as well as to provide instruction on cyber-safe practices and cybersecurity awareness. So for this webinar, we hope that you will be able to learn about the foundations of cybersecurity and how to be safe online. We hope that you will learn to think critically online and, of course, be responsible netizens in general. I am quite sure that you will learn a lot with all the knowledge that will be shared with us today by our resource person. Again, on behalf of the ILCDB, we hope that today is going to be another day full of learning for all of you. And good luck. Welcome once again and have fun learning.
Let us all watch this video overview.
Greetings, everyone. Before we start this session, we, the project management team of the DLP, or Digital Learners Project of the ICT Literacy and Competency Development Bureau of the Department of Information and Communications Technology, would like to give a short overview of our project. I am Eileen Parado, Project Development Officer of the ICT ILCDB. To start, the DICT is responsible for planning, development, and promotion of the country's information and communications technology agenda, and it upholds its mandate to develop standards and mechanisms for the protection of children online. Within the DICT is the ICT Literacy and Competency Development Bureau, or ILCDB, that implements ICT literacy programs. With this, the Digital Learners Project was developed to promote digital literacy and cyber education to students and learners. As an overview, the Digital Learners Project is a consolidation of digital education program projects, which includes the Digital Teachers and Learners, the Cyber-Safe Learning for Education, and the ICT Skilling Upskilling projects. The main goal of this project is to promote digital literacy, deliver cyber education, and promote cyber safety and security awareness and practices. These are the specific objectives of the project. First is to promote the use of ICT for the enhancement of key public services. Second is to empower the disadvantaged group of population through ICT. Third is to promote partnership between and among local and international ICT research and development, educational and training institute. Next is to promote digital literacy to students and learners. Fifth is to deliver cyber education and learning contents. And finally, to map trends and inform policy and future interventions. What we do in the project. There are two major components of the project, the device deployment and the provision of learning contents. For the device deployment, the DICT through the ILCDB deploy devices, laptops and tablets to different LGUs, public schools, and other public learning institutions. This is to provide means to continue with education, learning, as well as knowledge and capacity building of the nation despite the new normal situation. Aside from the deployment, the project also offers ICT courses and related contents to device recipients as well as other interested individuals to increase digital literacy and awareness on cyber threats, cybersecurity, and hygiene, using different platforms developed by partners of the ICT. These online courses were made possible in partnership with different private and public institutions such as University of the Philippines College of Education, Buri Technology Incorporated through CAS LMS, Cisco Networking Academy, Stairway Foundation Incorporated, Digital Tayo from Facebook and Ahad Behavioral Design, Microsoft, and Go Philippines. So that's for a quick introduction on the Digital Learners Project of the DICT ILCDB. If you have any question, feel free to reach us at digitallearning@dict.gov.ph. Thank you.
I'll be introducing our resource person. So our resource person is an experienced IT professional who is currently working as a professor at a prestigious university in the Philippines with in-depth knowledge in programming, networking, and security field. Apart from his full-time job, he conducts seminars and trainings, software projects, network deployment and maintenance, and consultancy in both network and security aspects. Without further ado, let me introduce our resource person for today, Mr. Gerard Nathaniel Ngo.
So this is welcome everyone for the second batch of this introduction to cybersecurity. So here's chapter 1. So why do we actually need? Di naman ako nakamute, no? So why do we actually need to have this cybersecurity, or why do you need to protect your data in short? So everybody has this thing called personal data, wherein this could be used against us, or we actually use this for many of our own transactions or personal transactions. But the thing about this is, if you don't keep your personal data safe, then you could be targeted for multiple things such as theft or identity theft, which could really harm you. Because if another individual could pose as you, then he or she could open an account under your name, and then you would be liable for all the purchases and damages that that person uses your account to do. So cybersecurity is basically the protection of network systems, data, and from unauthorized use or harm. So basically anything you placed on your computers, on your computing units, anything that you upload online, anything, any data or information that you actually create is really hard to delete or erase out, or make it as if it doesn't exist, because even your computers, your hard disk, when you write data on it and then you delete the file, it doesn't really delete that file. What it does, it is deletes it from a master list, which allows your operating system to display it as a logical file. then that's also the reason why our computers slow down at a certain point in time, because the hard disks are already full, and that is the time when data is rewritten or overwritten on the specific part of the drive that originally you placed the previous data on. So any form of protection for those files, for those written data, is what we call cybersecurity. So your online and offline identity are really important, but your online is more important than your offline, because being online or data being online means that a lot of people would have access to that uh, part of data. Maybe not everyone, but a lot of people could make ways to be able to access that part of your information. So your offline identity is basically your interactions with another individual, your regular basis at home, at school, at work, at any place. That all of those are still offline identity. So online identity is basically everything in that's in the cyberspace, or to put it in layman's terms, everything you post online is your online identity, regardless of the different platforms that you use. As long as you post it online, as long as you have already uploaded it, it's part of your online identity. So you should only reveal a very limited amount of information about you. This is like a no-brainer. Do not post, let's say, all of the persons in your house went to a vacation. Let's say they went to Boracay or some part of the country, or even outside the country. Do not post it online uh, on that specific time period. Maybe delay it after you get back, after you went back from that vacation. Because even if that is not directly harmful to your, let's say, credit card, to your anything that has money in relations, but that is useful information for like typical burglars that could just add you or view your information via the platforms that you're posting it in, regardless of the different platforms. And they could utilize that information to, let's say, get into your house, because there's nobody in the house, because you posted everybody is already in that resort or in that area. And so even on small things, like let's say you bought a CCTV, and then you post it online, and then the serial number is revealed, that could be used to for another individual to check if that platform or that equipment has a vulnerability which is available online. Let's say you bought a new equipment, you could like uh, post it. You could brag about it if you want, but it's highly unadvised to do so. Not only because you're bragging, maybe you're bragging too much, or specifically because you're giving out information that could be used against you. Let's say you bought a laptop that has a known vulnerability, and then you did not patch that system, that could be used against you. Even let's say you bought a very expensive car, and then you post it online, and then you don't update the operating system, or basically the computer system that the car is using, again, could be used against you. So any small thing, even let's say your smartwatch. I see a lot of people buying smartwatches, buying the cheap ones as well. And then the thing about that is it's relatively fine to buy those things, but those things are still considered as IoT devices. So let's say cheap webcam, cheap anything that's not directly from the original manufacturer could probably have outdated firmwares, outdated software. And so if you have anything outdated, that means there's already an update that is released publicly for that platform, for that specific device, in which if you don't patch it, it means it has a known vulnerability. That's why there's a patch for it, because there was already a discovered vulnerability for that. And so another individual knowing that you purchase that specific device could use that against you, and could use that known vulnerability to access to gain, say, backdoor access to that device, and that could obviously harm you. So username or aliases, highly advised, do not put any personal information, like put random letters and numbers only. Should be always be appropriate and respectful, and should not attract unwanted attention. That's why don't flex too much. Okay. So your data also includes your medical records, such electronic health records, such as your physical, your mental, any other personal information, and specifically pertaining to your prescriptions. Another individual who wants to harm you could use this medical record against you. It could be anyone. Okay, and not necessarily. It doesn't necessarily need for another individual to have that malicious intent to you because you harmed that individual. That could just be because that's how the person is. And so do not just keep your personal data to yourself as much as possible. Like, do not post anything that could be used against you. Even your educational records, even as mediocre as your attendance, your disciplinary reports, this could all be used against you when you, let's say, apply for a job, when you try to, let's say, apply for promotions, things like that. All of those could be used against you. For your employment, financial records, your income, very important, your expenditures, everybody knows BIR, right? So do not flex a lot of things. Your tax records, specifically your paychecks, your credit card statements. This could relatively is relatively easy to use to open another account on another bank if they have your previous credit card statements, because it has a ton of information there that could be used to open an account, to destroy an account, to have let's say, negative impact on a certain person if you know how to do it. And that is available online. So anybody that has access to the internet could potentially do it. So credit card rating, banking statements, this is also how other companies poach. This is also how other companies, let's say, another manufacturing or another banking company could like poke you to their services because you revealed too much of your information online, that they were able to use a crawler to pull your information and then give it to their sales department, and then they start. That's how it starts. Your past employment and your performance for that past employment, very important as well. Again, could be used when you are trying to transition to another company, when you are trying to apply for promotion, when you're trying to do any sort of improvement on your say employment records. If another individual is also, let's say, aiming for that specific position or aiming for that spot as well, that could be used against you. So where is your data? Medical records are obviously in the doctor's office, in your insurance company. Always make sure that you only apply or you only tag the minimum required information that is needed by that service provider. Like, do not post excessive stuff. Do not upload everything. Store loyalty cards. Stores and compiles all of your previous purchases. Obviously their marketing partners uses your profiles for targeted advertisements. That's why we get spam. That's why we get like random, not random, but targeted spams to our email, and that also could be used by another individual to do phishing on you, to pretend that they're somebody else to some other platform, and then trick you into logging into their platform. So therefore getting your credential, therefore doing harm to you, towards your account or towards you personally. So online pictures, friends, strangers, obviously could have a copy, easily searchable via Google. It also doesn't mean that if you post something online to any platform and then you tag it as private, it will be, let's say, 100% private. Because there's no such thing as 100% uh, private online. As soon as you post something online, think of it as it's already freely available on the internet. Okay, have that default mindset. So you will never post anything online that you think, okay, not everybody on earth, not everybody on the internet should have access to this. Okay. So your computer devices obviously stores your data on your hard disk drives, your portal to your online data. If you save um, login access to your browsers, be very careful of that. If you do those things, and make sure the browser is always updated. So just a few of the computing devices are smartphones, are watches, are tablets, any device that has an operating system that we store information on. That's your computer devices. So why do individuals want to get your data? What do they get out of it? Money. That's not really the source of all evil, but that's the source of maybe the greed of all people, because anything you want to do, you have to have money. Not anything, but like 99.999%. It's like higher percent rate than what Safeguard is, advertising to kill germs, like 99 point a lot of nines. So giving them your online credentials gives access to your accounts. If they have access to your account, they can pretty much do anything that you could do in your access. So if you use, let's say, a password, one password for all of your accounts. So if you use if you use, let's say, 100 platforms, and out of that 100 platform, you have this one platform that is vulnerable, only one platform. So just because of that one platform, they get access to your password, and then they use your password for all of your other accounts, and then they breach it. If they gain access to your, let's say, banking account, then your money is already good as nothing already, because they could have already transferred that, and the banks will not reimburse you for it. If I think in most banks that I know, if your account was accessed legitimately, even if it wasn't you, but they accessed that account legitimately, proper username, proper password, regardless of the means, it will be very, very hard for you to contest that that wasn't you, that your account was stolen, and then it will take like a ton of time and obviously money and resources to just get back your money, assuming that that is possible within the terms and conditions of the account of the banks that you're using. But for most banks, even for the banks that I'm using, it won't allow you to do so. So be very, very careful, and always obviously change passwords. So they have uh, really, really creative schemes from back then when they're trying to do phishing, which is basically calling you over the phone, telling you a really dramatic story or really creative story, and that to trick you to wire money to them, or to trick you to give access to your accounts, maybe telling you something about something happened to your friend, something about happening to your family member, those things too. What they're doing now, which is targeted emails, targeted phishing attacks, that they trick you into logging into their platform, telling you that your account was locked, that you have to reset it, that you have to log in, that you have to change password, or that you won magically the lottery without even betting for it, that you won something out of a competition, out of an event that you didn't even join. So be very, very wary of that, and always look at the links. When you hover a link in the email, there should be a status bar under your web browsers or any of your messaging or email platforms that would actually tell you what link it's going to open when you click on that URL. So be very careful of that. Or basically just don't open emails that you don't know, that you're not sure where it came from, because it's also relatively easy to fake or spoof emails. Okay, but if you use a standard email provider such as Google, Microsoft, they would easily filter those out if it comes from an illegitimate SMTP server or email server. So why do they want your identity? Obviously, long-term profits, get your account, wait for you to earn more, and then transfer the money. Medical benefits, they could pretend to be you if you have the same medical condition and then get benefits out of your account. They could easily file a fixed tax return. They could like do something like a donation type of thing. Since they have all of your information, they could spoof documents into fooling other agencies to think that, okay, because I did this, I now have this certain tax percentage like discount or credit, something like that. They could open, this is the most harmful ones, they could open another credit card account on your under your name and then sign that card, because banking companies, when they send out your credit cards or new credit cards, even if it's a renewal or just newly opened, they will send the card via snail mail, and then there's no signature at the back. So the person or the person that got your information illegally and was able to open a credit card account under your name could just sign that, and then he could create a fake card, a fake looking legitimate ID that he or she will sign, and that will be proof that could be used to like validate the credit card under your name with his or her signature, and so could do a swipe with your card. And obviously obtaining loans, if that person loaned for like maybe a million or a few million under your name, then you would be liable to pay for that, even if you were not the actual person who opened that account, who did the loan, but just because that other person or that individual was able to do those things because they have enough personal information about you, then it will be considered as legit. Okay, so be very careful. So you also have what we call organizational data. So things like data that when you're working. So we have the traditional data, which has personal, so application for materials, your payrolls, your offer letters, your employment agreements. You also have this intellectual data, so patents, trademarks, product plans, trade secrets, even procedures on how to create a product. So let's say the secret recipe to creating Coke. So if those organizational data could be stolen, then another company or another individual could create another product with literally the same thing and even improve on it and then sell that product at a lower cost. And so the consumers would switch to that product because it tastes the same. It's almost the same, or it's even better, just because they got your intellectual property. Could also have financials, so things like income statements, balance sheets, cash flow statements could relatively be easy to use against your company. Okay. So Internet of Things and big data. So IoTs are very large networks of physical devices that has sensors, that has like a lot of even small computing devices that is connected to the internet. For as long as it's connected to the internet and it's doing something, it has a computing source, that's already an IoT. And those things, when you buy them, when you purchase them, it comes with factory installed firmwares that is most of the time, maybe not 100% of the time, but most of the time have outdated firmwares that you need to patch, because those outdated firmwares have released patches because they are vulnerable in the first place. That's already discovered like years ago or even months ago if that device is relatively new. And so if you don't patch them, you're essentially inviting somebody else. Let's say if that's a CCTV, if that's an NVR, network video recorder. So to watch you, to watch your house. That could be a burglar. That could be somebody that wants to steal from you. And so it will be relatively easy for another individual to go inside your house when they could actually see who are the individuals or persons that is inside the house or where are they located. They could even remotely delete the records. Okay. And big data. So these are data from the IoTs that could be used against you. So for everything, you must have this three, the CIA triangle, or in this case, it's a sphere. So confidentiality just means you have privacy. It means whatever you send out on the internet, on the network, or any platform should be encrypted at the minimum. So when another individual gains a copy of that because you sent it out on the internet and basically anybody connected to any ISP could relatively have a way to get that data easily. But even if you have confidentiality, which means you have privacy in that data will have some sort of encryption. And with that, that information won't be easily be as available as plain text. Because if you don't have encryption on the data that you're sending out, let's say if you're using HTTP versus HTTPS, then if you use HTTP, all of the login credentials, everything that you're sending out, it's in clear text. And if another individual gets a copy of that, gets a copy of the packet that the platform is sending, then relatively easy to use that and manipulate that against you. It must have data platforms must always have integrity. So integrity just means accuracy, trustworthiness of the information. This means the capability of validating that the information that is being sent and that is being received on the other end is actually came from a valid legitimate source, actually came from the other end of the application. It's not spoofed, it's not fake, it's not created by another individual to look as if it's real. Hindi peke, short. Okay, so availability, so information should always be accessible when it is or as prescribed by the terms and condition of that service. When we say availability, it doesn't necessarily mean 24 by 7. It doesn't necessarily mean it has no downtime, but it has to have at least the bare minimum based on the terms and conditions stated in which that data or that service should be available. And it should only be available to the persons that has the right access to that platform or to that data. Okay, now it shouldn't be like available publicly if it's not supposed to be publicly available. Okay, so what are the consequences of security breach? To sum it in short, money. You will pay like a lot for damages. So it's obviously not feasible to counter every attack, to prevent even every attack, because no such this system is like 100% bulletproof for all attacks. But what we could do is what we're doing at our houses, at our homes, because you can't protect it from all attacks, but you still close your door, you still have a gate, you still have maybe pets, probably dogs, hopefully dogs, to like at least bark or warn you if somebody goes inside the premise and is not known by that pet. No? So for others, you have CCTV cameras that has alarm systems that has at least records whoever goes inside the house or inside the property. So attackers will always find new ways to get in, then that's guaranteed. But what we could do is at least we would be able to record the event. And so if they were able to go in the first time, the second time they won't be able to, because we now know that vulnerability or how that attacker accessed our system, and we could even file a case against that attacker because we have the logs for it. We recorded everything, and would be able to hopefully catch the criminal. So it, it doesn't mean that since there is no 100% bulletproof, why would we even protect it in the first place? We protect it so that we eventually get to a point wherein even if it's still vulnerable, it will be very, very hard to go in. Okay. So if somebody gets in and does damage, so it could ruin the reputations, it could vandalize, could destroy data, it could steal that data. Obviously, revenues will have losses. You could literally lose money and damage intellectual properties. Because let's say, if you're watching Formula 1, kung alam niyo yun, F1, yung mga racing. So, if team within different teams, they're competing for this competition. If one team gains intellectual properties on how the other teams creates and manages their, let's say, their engine system or how their car works, they could reverse engineer that to have gained all of the like meaningful things that the other teams are doing to their cars. That's why they're performing better than them, and then even make improvements to those information that they gained, and so they would have better driving cars. So it's the same thing with other services, other platforms. By gaining required or at least minimum information, or how even the process of the other companies are doing. If you're selling the same service, if you're selling this almost the same product, or just within the line of the same product, or even if you're not selling the same service, you could now do it because you already know the the process, even let's say the suppliers, the distributors for those types of services and for those type of product. And in short, that company will now have revenue loss because they now have this competitor that has gained information from their system because they had a security breach. So we have a few examples, like three here on the slide. So the first is LastPass. It's an online password manager. So if you know what an online password manager is, it's literally what it says. It saves your passwords for you because it's relatively hard for any specific individual to like remember maybe 50 passwords if you have 50 different platforms, and you want to be doing the best thing for them, which is one password per platform, and then you never use it, and then you don't recycle passwords, so you don't reuse it, and then you always change it. So the way to do that easily, relatively easily, is basically to use a password manager. But in this case, the LastPass online password manager got breached, and so the attackers were able to stall to get the email addresses, password reminders, which most of the time for typical people, for typical individual, stores a hint, a very very uh, easy hint to remember what the password actually is, and so the attacker could like reverse engineer that to actually get the password and even the authentication hashes. If you get the authentication hash of the password, it doesn't necessarily mean that you could use the password because it's hashed. It's in like in jumbled format. You have to dehash it, or at or you have to know how that password was hashed, so you could build a rainbow table to reverse engineer and try to find a match for that hash. And so when that happens, you will be able to get the plain text because you basically brute force your way into getting the password. Okay. So since they got breached, they now made a few changes to their platform, such as requiring email verification, multi-factor authentication whenever you're logging into a new device. So this is the same thing on how Google does things. If you try, let's say, if you bought a new phone and then you log in your email, it will actually send an email notification to you informing you that, okay, somebody accessed your email from an unknown device because it's the first time they're logging into that device, even if it's you, then telling and then asking you if it's really you or if it's not. Because if it's not, you could easily just block it by clicking one link. Even that prevents another individual to open your account, even if he or she knows your password. Okay. So users must always use a complex master password, because for LastPass to be for you to be able to use the platform, you have this one master password that unlocks all of the passwords for you. So because some of the users use less complex password, like password 123, something like that, or 123 password, or ABC, or for the Cisco guys, we when we teach the class, we always use Cisco or class as the password. Some of them maybe use that. That's easily breakable. Okay. So always they told the customers to change the passwords and be very wary of phishing attacks, because most of the users, most of the individuals, when they get hacked, it's because of phishing. It's because of two things: phishing and social engineering. Because even if they're using platforms which are really nicely built, they are standard across all modules and across everything. But since the user is always the weakest link on the chain of the platform, because if the user gives out the username and password to another individual, it will be very hard for that platform to validate and to think that, oh, that may not be the user, even if they're logging in, because they're logging in with the correct platform with the legitimate username and password. Okay. So next, we have VTech. This was really call that known device. Hopefully till now, I seldom see this type of devices now in the malls, but these are a very high tech toy manufacturer for children. So what happened was they was exposed, or they were breached. Obviously, they exposed sensitive information, including the customers' names, which could be used for phishing, their email addresses, another way to use phishing, the password. So the attackers could now create fake profiles to impersonate the users. So more damaging things, the pictures and the uh, chat logs. So VTech did not safeguard the information properly. Basically, they store the information in plain text. So hackers can now create email accounts, apply for credits, credit cards, bank accounts, things like that, and commit crimes using the children's information. Because even if they're not 18, they're still human being. In which case, the hacker could, or the user that got those information could just wait a few years till the person is within age and then open a bank account under that name. So hackers also take over parents' online account since they already breach the database. So lesson here is the the platform should always be secure. And when you're dealing with PII, personal identifiable information, and you store it in your database, at least have it encrypted. So when worst thing happens, let's say your database gets dumped, you could immediately inform the users, and then for them to change the passwords at least, right? And at least it's not in clear text. Last company is, I mean, for the example is Equifax. So this is a consumer credit reporting agency, which means highly volatile information, highly damaging information if it gets to the wrong people, which has been breached. So attackers exploited a vulnerability in the web application software. This is specifically pertaining to their, when we have online platforms, you have an area or a module that allows an individual to report feedbacks, comments, things like that, or requests for features, things like that. Attackers was able to go in using that area. Okay, so since it's not properly protected, or at least the data isn't properly filtered. So Equifax established a dedicated website. So they created a new domain just to allow nefarious parties to create an authorized website for phishing schemes. So if you know what we call subdomains, so it's something like you have google.com, right? You could have mail.google.com that opens their email platform. So the attackers made this subdomain because they were able to gain access to the back end of the system via the vulnerable part of the web application software. And so they fooled a lot of people into thinking, oh, this is legitimate because it's a subdomain of the real legitimate domain. And it actually took some time before the administrators was able to figure out that, hey, that subdomain isn't ours. Why is it there? Well, what's it doing there? Okay. So as admins, the lesson here is always check for subdomains, magic subdomains, or even files that shouldn't be in the platform. So if you're handling websites, applications, any web applications or any type of application rather, and you have files running on the server, you must have at least one tool that when you, let's say, click on it, it will tell you these are all files are legit because their hashes match. And then if you have a magic file in there that's not supposed to be there, usually that's how attackers gain access to the web platform. When they breach the site, they upload a web shell, and then they use that web shell as an anchor point or a pivot point to attack other platforms within that is reachable within the platform, within the network of that deployed service. Okay, so you must always be able to determine if a magic file was already created. It means you already breached. You have already been breached without even knowing about it. So at least if you see that, you could instantly delete that and even check where it came from and at least block that IP, okay, or that device from using the platform while you investigate using your SIEM or your firewall or whatever is security platform you're deployed within your uh, company that is protecting or that is at least logging the different access to the services that you're providing outside. Okay. So, typical attackers, cybersecurity professionals. So we have obviously different types. We have the first one, amateurs. These are the script kiddies with little to zero skill at all, because anybody could try to break into any system if you have access to the internet. It's that bad now, or it's not bad, but it's bad, but it's that easy now. Even kids, literally kids, that's why it's called script kiddies. They rely on pre-built existing tools that wasn't actually created for that, but they could use that and just search on YouTube, search on different platforms on how to use that already built-in script to be able to penetrate and to be able to, let's say, have access to vulnerable systems because it's not patched. Okay. So these are relatively easy to track. To these are the ones that get caught within less than 30 days because they when they attack or when they perform the penetration testing or when they perform the attack themselves, they have zero or little to zero uh, understanding on how the tools are actually working on the back end or how literally the steps the tools are doing, and so they produce like a ton of noise in the network, a ton of unrequired packets or unrequired transmissions, in which if there's an administrator looking at the logs or the network transmissions, or even if let's say the system or the company has deployed something like an IPS or an IDS. If you have an IDS that automatically notifies the admins that, hey, something fishy is happening. If you had an IPS, that's even better, intrusion prevention system, that would automatically block certain types of attacks. If certain attack tools that are already well known, let's say tools that are inside Kali Linux, for example, are already well known. So a typical well set up, properly set up IPS would be able to easily prevent that. Auto block. Even if, let's say, you're running a platform, a service that is vulnerable, but you have an IPS in front, that attack won't be able to go through. Assuming that the IPS is properly configured. Okay. So hackers could easily break into computers or gain network access. You have different types. So three of the most common types are white hats. So these white hats actually have permission to do so. These are the security professionals that have a black and white agreement with the company that is actually hiring them to do penetration system or VAPT, vulnerability assessment and penetration testing. Basically, could you check if our system is vulnerable? And if yes, please tell us about it and even suggest things that we could do to be able to fix those vulnerabilities or at least fix those weaknesses. Gray hats, they compromise systems without permission. They are the sometimes white, sometimes black hats. That's why they're called gray hats. And black hats are like literally the bad people, or the people that maybe has nothing to do. Okay, so they take advantages of any vulnerability for illegal and personal gain, financial gain, political gain, or most of the time it's just for fun, just for the thrill of it. So we also have organized hackers, or these are individuals that are under one organization or multiple organization that does criminal things, or criminals, or hacktivists, terrorists. Even the most dangerous ones are state-sponsored hackers, because it's really hard to combat one country if they're attacking your platform. Okay. For questions, ayan, may mga tanong pala, no? Sige, let's try to answer them as we go along. Uh, Incognito doesn't save you. Okay, or will not save you. In what? Okay, your web browsers have this called private browsing. Okay, what that only does is it deletes your history on your local PC. Okay, so if let's say you're using a computer to do if you're using a computer that is not yours, and then you would like to do something, a transaction, or do web browsing or whatnot, using the browser that is obviously installed on that computer that you is not yours, and then what you would like to do is you would like to not retain any history of any transaction that you did once you close the browser. That is the purpose of incognito or private browsing. Ha? Hindi yan safe. Hindi yan para hindi ako ma-hack. Mag-incognito ako. No. What that only does is erase your history, the tracks, or the actions that you made, or the sites that you access to when you close the browser. That's incognito. That's private browsing. Okay, so is it not safe to save passwords on browsers? This depends. What password are you saving? If you're saving passwords that you're using for platforms that doesn't have money, you have minimal damage. Okay, when I say minimal, because they can't log into your. Hopefully, you're using a different password. They can't log into your bank accounts. But if you can, don't save it, because browsers are softwares, and softwares could have vulnerabilities. Eventually, will have vulnerabilities, or uh bypass, to put it in short. And so i- to make it safe, always update your browser. That's it. That's the best thing you could do. And use a different password per browser or per account. So is it not safe? It's relatively safe, depending on how safe you want to be. Because you want 100% safe, don't even type it in, don't even save it on any platform. Save it in your brain. Okay, don't even write it on your paper. Where should I save my password if I keep forgetting? Yeah, use a password manager. Is the Apple default password manager, iCloud Chain, a secure password manager? Depends on what version you're using. If you're using the latest one, it's relatively safe. And I'm saying only relatively because no application or no platform is 100% safe. How safe is the built-in VPN in some web browser? I think the answer could just be a question. How much trust do you put in that platform, in that web browser? Because um, anybody could, with like a bit of programming skills that you could learn just by doing YouTubes, or enrolling online or online courses, could learn how to create a web browser, like a ton of DLLs, a ton of libraries to do that. And so if you're using one of those, and then they have a built-in VPN, they have access to your data. That's it. My recommendation is to basically use a VPN that is paid, because there's a ton of difference between paid VPN and free VPN. That's why if they're giving it out for free, they have something to gain in return. And paid VPN is you're literally paying them to forget your data. And so if they retain your data, if they track your data, and if they use that data on something else, you could prove it and you could sue them. So is there any possibility that even if there's two authentication, it may be hacked? I think you're referring to multi-factor authentication. And if yes, then the answer is yes. Relatively easy to bypass two-factor or multi-factor authentication if used poorly. Any good security from social media? The best one I can tell you is don't post, because something that is not there cannot be hacked. If you don't post your personal information, let's say your birthday, your address, your email, they can't get it, right? What is the easiest way to know if your phone or laptop were hacked? Um, have a monitoring software that monitors the everything that is going out and going in your phone. If you're connected to your home network, uh, let's say PLDT, they have a modem. You put an IPS IDS in between, or even a sniffer in between, and then you put your phone after that. So the phone connects to the sniffer, and the sniffer connects forwards the packets to the modem or to your router that's connected, that does the translation to have internet. And then you monitor the packets that is going through and going back. If you are hacked and the individual is doing something to your phone, you will know it in the traffic, in the conversation that your device is doing that should not be done. That's not normal. Okay, that is like the only. It's not even foolproof way still, because if you don't know how to properly use or read packets, you could even use like Wireshark to do that. Uh, then you won't be able to know. Okay. So best way, study, learn the technology, and then apply it. Okay, so yun. Ubus na yung question. So moving on. We have two types of threats for companies. We have internal and external. When we say internal, these are already inside the company. So they are the most dangerous ones because they have access. And in an internal threat could not just, could not just be the typical disgruntled employee that they hate the company so much that they're trying to destroy the company within from inside. This could also be a contract partner that has access to your resources inside the company, or most of the time these are the employees that has little to no knowledge about the threats that are available, that is happening out there, and they do the damage without even knowing about it. Let's say a non-techie person walks in the cafeteria that has a ton of access, sees a flash drive lying on the floor, thinks somebody lost it, I'm gonna use that. It's a storage drive, gets the drive, takes lunch. After that, goes back to the office, goes back to the workstation, plugs it in. Without knowing that, that's already a rubber ducky. Or without knowing that that flash drive is purposely left so that if another individual, another employee inside the company takes that and plugs it into a system, to a computing system, a PC, a laptop, even a phone, tablet, any device that is connected to the internal networks of the company, could hack, could access the company because of that, because it has a backdoor. Okay, so it accidentally invites malware into the network through a malicious email, through a malicious website, without knowing about it. Okay, without doing it on purpose. So it can cause great damage because of the direct access. Think about it. If this was done by the CEO of the company, which has access to like a ton of things, maybe not everything, but a ton of things, because he's the owner, he's the CEO, even if it's not the owner, then that individual caused like a ton of harm, a ton of damage to the company. So we have external threats. So these are exploit vulnerabilities in the network, or even computing devices that is exposed outside. And so it could be attacks from outside. And these are the things that you typically use social engineering to gain access. So, another individual trying to befriend one specific employee or a group of employees that is working inside the company so that he gets personal information out of those employees to be able to use to gain access to the company resources, and therefore causes great damages without the employees even knowing about it. So the best way to prevent these things from happening is basically to teach those individuals about the threats, about the things that could go wrong if they do certain tasks, if they give out certain type of information, and what things to look out for. And another added way to do things is to practice them. So this is done by creating red teams or teams inside the company that the only purpose is to fool people, try to fish people, try to hack into the own company systems, own services, programs, platforms, and if they see a vulnerability, report it immediately, and so that vulnerability will be fixed, and no information will get out because those are still employees of the company, which has legitimate access to the platforms that is being used by the company themselves. Okay. That's why we have like red team and blue team inside the company. Blue team protects the infrastructure, the services. Red team tries to break in that infrastructure and even the employees. And so that is how you build tolerance towards your employees to things like social engineering attacks, phishing attacks, things like that. So lastly, we have what we call cyber warfare. So in here, this is conflicts used in the cyberspace or basically in the internet. So best example is the Strucknet malware. So it was designed to damage Iran's nuclear enrichment plant. So just think about a nuclear meltdown, just because the platform that is controlling that's handling that nuclear power plant got hacked. The attackers could essentially turn off the sensors and make everything go nuclear. So they used modular coding. They used stolen digital certificates to be able to go inside that enrichment plant. Okay. Okay. So meron pa. Question. Some people offer insurance and they are asking for bank details. Is it necessary to give bank details just to process online insurance? Initially, no. No. Initially, no. Um, especially if it entails giving your bank account, if it entails giving your bank credential, no, that's a phishing attack. Do they can control bank account without having the password of it? Yes, if you give them enough information. If your bank account has a password reset asking, let's say, who your parents was, who your father is, who your mother is, who your father is, who your mother is, basically your parents, or let's say who your when where you first graduated, something like that, any personal information. If you use that to do password resets on your banking account, even if you don't give out your password, if they have enough personal detail, they could just do your password reset to your account and access that. So don't. How can we protect our account if we already given the details to a stranger or online site? First, change password immediately. Second, change everything that you could change to gain access to that account, such as password reset questions, access details. If you gave them a phone number, access your online account, buy a new SIM card relatively cheap, change the number. Okay. And then notify that uh that platform or that bank that, oh, someone fished me, I accidentally gave them this information, do not give access except for this device, something like that. And then the bank will uh do their preventive measures. Okay. How to block sites just to keep children on sharing data from a browser? There's what we call it differs from different platforms, but it's usually parental controls. You can see them as parental controls, and you could use that and to sign in your children's account to limit them from viewing, doing anything. But this again differs from platform to platform. Hope you can share the presentation. Yes, I think the DICT people will give that. Can iPhone be hacked? Yes, any platform can be hacked with the right amount of determination from the wrong people and with the right information, with not even the right information, with enough information, anything can be hacked. Yeah, so no more questions. Last slide. So purpose, why would they even bother with cyber warfare? Basically, just to gain advantage over adversaries, nations, competitors. If you can sabotage, I'm not saying this for you to do this to try to attempt, because your 5 minutes of fame could end up years in jail. So you waste your life by doing that fun for 5 minutes. So you could they could sabotage the infrastructures of other nations. They could give attackers the ability to blackmail governmental personnel into giving them access or giving them obviously money. Citizens may lose confidence in government's ability to protect them and therefore migrate to another country and therefore reduce the income which is gained from taxes from the people that is living within the country. And so it affects the citizens' faith in the government without ever physically invading the targeted nations, because it's not safe anymore. Okay. Okay. Question: is it safe to use DocuSign? Okay. With signatures. Personally, I would advise having two signatures. One for the really important things, money matters. Pirma sa credit card, signature on your credit card. And the other one is just for work stuff, just for document signatures for any purpose, for any process that requires your signature to, maybe you're approving something, maybe you're recommending something that actually needs your signature, use that second one. But for everything else that has money matters, that's the important things. Uh, Actually, both of them are important. Maybe the more important thing, then don't. Just use that signature very limitedly. So just in case your signature was used on a platform or on a document that you would not place your first signature in, then they only have access to the second one, and so that document won't be validated by organizations such as banks. Okay, you could explicitly tell them even about it. Okay, I have two signatures. I only use this signature for all of my bank transactions. The other one, don't even bother to consider it. You could do that. And always track the documents that you do digital signatures in. So you would be able to validate if someone, Photoshops, edits relatively easy now to get their signature from one document and put it on another document. Okay? So you could contest to that. Gaano po kahanda yung Pilipinas sa event ng isang cyber warfare? We have already been in cyber warfare since we have internet in the Philippines. But unfortunately, I cannot answer that question directly because I'm not part of the government. I'm not part of the individuals that is handling that side of the infrastructure, and it's not um it's not placed like in a, although it's in a hierarchical design, but it's not placed like a typical company is, which is there's a powerful group of individuals, a highly skilled individuals looking after everything. No, it's actually designed on a per modular per se, that okay, DICT has their own infrastructure, and the people in the IT department of their security side of things is only handling that part. And on another department, there's also other individuals, and we also have this cybercrime division of I think the PNP, that does investigations when something happens. Okay, when something happens. It doesn't mean that they're 24/7 looking at the logs, looking at all of the transactions, looking at all of the like events happenings on all of the platforms, because that's relatively hard. But we're slowly but surely getting there, hopefully. And if you're skilled enough, you could apply for it. They're posting online jobs, applications everywhere. Is it safe to apply online job? Yes. As long as you don't give out too much information, only the required information for that job, and you have already vetted that the platform that you are applying to, that you're using to apply, is safe, is well known, and you're opening their legitimate site, then it's relatively safe, because you don't even need to post your like credit card information or your bank account. And if that's required, it's relatively easy to open another account just for the purpose of getting salary from that online job. That's what I also would recommend. If you have multiple jobs or income sources, create one account, one banking account per source. So just in case that gets breached, you only compromise one account. You don't compromise all accounts. Okay, open like multiple accounts per different banking companies. That in that way also increases your credit evaluation. That increases your, like, if you're going to take out a loan, if you're going to apply for a credit card, that gives you a higher limit just because you have that. Okay, so that's the end of my slide. Just going to stop my share screen. So if you have any other questions po, you can put them on the chat window.
Thank you, Sir Gerard, for that very informative lecture. I am certain that everyone was able to learn about our topic in the first chapter of the Introduction to Cybersecurity course, the need for cybersecurity. So may I now call on Sir JJ Pura of the Digital Learners Project to provide us with a platform demonstration using the LMS and Cisco Networking Academy.
So, hello everyone. Welcome to the Cisco platform demonstration. Before we start, make sure to take notes so you won't miss anything important in this demonstration. All right, so first make sure to check your email addresses so you can click the self-enrollment link provided to you. And for this instance, I just copy pasted the link and it directed me to the NetAcad LMS. All right, so it will ask you to fill out your country of residence, birth month, and birth year. Then, by clicking the next account details button, you will be directed to a page where you have to fill out your first and last name, email address, and region. And then you have to answer a very simple arithmetic question and kindly tick the box to subscribe to the Cisco newsletters. After clicking the next button or submit button, it is important to verify your account using the registered email address. So click the link in the email that was sent to you, and then it will direct you to the password creation page. Please make sure to follow the password requirements as you can see there on your screen. Click create my account afterwards. We will also be requesting all the participants to provide the additional information by clicking the checkbox pertaining to the agree to provide more information about myself. We will be needing at least the gender for monitoring and evaluation purposes. Please also make sure that all the encoded information are true and correct. Click the create account button and voila, your account is already created. You can now access the course Introduction to Cybersecurity, composed of 5 chapters and examinations. The website will then provide you a tour. We also highly suggest to you to please do familiarize yourself with the platform and familiarize yourself with the links available to you, and please be mindful of the due dates. To kickstart, click the first time in this course, which is the course introduction, to give you an overview of the learning management system and what to expect in the course. You may also use the breadcrumbs or the links above to help you navigate easily in the LMS. The activities box in your right-hand side will also be very useful in your learning journey. After familiarizing yourself with the LMS, click the Launch Chapter 1 link for you to access. You will be then asked to click a picture, which will serve as your chapter background. In this case, I'll be clicking the dot. You may choose any. Each chapter has videos, transcripts, which can help you further understand cybersecurity. As you can see, each chapter has sections needed to be accomplished. The LMS is very user-friendly and easy to navigate. Towards the end of the course, you need to finish the final examination for you to obtain your certificate. We're also looking forward to you joining the second chapter, or the module number 3, next week. That's it for the demonstration. Thank you for listening and happy learning. Now we proceed to the forum. All right, so I believe Sir Gerard is also answering your questions earlier, but if you do have any more questions, please do raise them now. Sir Gerard, may I call you back po? We're also live via Facebook po, sir, and there's one question po from the Facebook Live from Sir Mark. I think you somehow touched this earlier, but the question here is more in particular with the Google Forms. The question is, what about applicants required to fill out an application form through the use of Google Forms? And they seem to ask a lot of details.
If you trust the company that's asking for the details, then it's relatively safe. Google encrypts everything that it saves. So if the company is using Google Forms, it's not that the information might get hacked or might get leaked. It's just that you gave that company access, or basically your personal information. And if they're asking too much, don't. That's the rule. If you think that it's already illogical to give out a certain information, let's say if you're trying to go in, if you're let's say, what's like a relatively easy example? Okay, so let's say you are going to enter a competition, okay, and then it's asking for your email address. Maybe it's okay. It's asking for your physical address. Maybe if the prize will be delivered to you, it's okay. And then it's asking for your bank account. Then maybe don't join at all, because it's not worth maybe winning like a small prize at the cost of them knowing your bank details. Or if you are you suspect them doing something fishy at the back, you could just you could just enter invalid detail. Just pick place like 9 all ones. Because they won't be able to validate that, not unless they use that information negatively. I mean, they try to open an account under your name, and then that's how the bank will validate and do a background check that, oh, this information is incorrect. It's not legit. And that stops the bad thing from happening.
All right, thank you, Sir Gerard, for those tips. Another question po from Mr. Aljan. Is it safe po to store my passwords using Google Sheets? Thanks po.
No. Okay. I said a while ago that Google saves the information encrypted, right? So it should be logically relatively safe. But for storing passwords, my top one recommendation is do not put it on anything except for your brain. Okay? Because till now, the only thing that can't be hacked is your brain. Except if they fooled you into giving. That's not hacking. That's your willingness to give out the information. But for platforms, if you place it, okay, so let's say I have a PC that is not going online forever. Okay, I'm going to store my password there. It should be safe, right? I'm not gonna plug in a flash drive. I'm not gonna connect that to the internet. I'm not gonna do anything that will have a chance in compromising the data that I place there. Okay. What if the time comes that the PC will get thrown out because it's not working anymore? Then you delete. But since you only deleted like the normal deletion, even if you like shift delete stuff, no? Kasi may wrong connotation na there's a no connotation that if you do shift delete, permanent delete, really deletes it from your drive. No, you have to use like softwares to wipe that out. And even if you use those softwares, there's not 100% chance that the data will get deleted. Data that is already written at least once in the hard drive is already there that could potentially be unwritten, reopened, retaken, so in short, gathered. And so that still makes it unsafe. And the only way to like surely save your password is don't tell anybody about it. Anything, not only anybody, but don't tell anything, any object, okay, about it.
All right, thank you, Sir Gerard. Sorry, I know we're almost running out of time, but I think I have to ask this question. It also pertains to the password storage. So may I just ask, what is your tip, or what are your tips for those who are not really into technical, non-technicals, maybe our parents, on how they can remember their passwords and where to store it properly?
Um, Okay, tip for parents. Kung yun yung target audience Okay. Uh hopefully you have children. That's why you're parents. Uh if you have maybe for child, because me I'm we are four in my area or in my situation. Think about phrases about your children that only you will know and that you will never forget about. Maybe their quirks, maybe their bad attitude, maybe their favorite food, maybe something that they really like doing that should not be doing. Because you will remember that. Okay? Simple phrases that is at least 4 to 5 words. Okay? And then do not tell anybody about it, even your spouse, because your spouse might write it somewhere or might tell it accidentally to somebody else. And misspell at least 2 to 3 words, and then place numbers. Do not place meaningful numbers like their favorite number, your favorite number, your date of birth, their date of birth, their um what else? I don't know. Anything meaningful. The only meaningful is the phrase that you will jumble, that you will misplace. The keyword is misplace, misspelled, not misspelled words. And try to generate those at least yearly, annually. That will hopefully make it easier for the parents who are, or even individuals that are really not techy and that has a hard time remembering passwords. Because if you're using maybe 20 platforms, then you need 20 passwords. And if you're OC like me, for those type of things, I need to generate maybe 20 passwords per 3 months. And not everybody could do that or is willing to do that. Everybody could do that, but it's not obviously willing to do that. So maybe try doing that. But do not write it on any piece of paper. Do not, because I see a lot of non-technical, they will write it on sticky paper and
Yes.
they will stick it to the monitor. Uh, it's like handing out the password to anybody that sees the monitor. Oh, that's your bank account. That's your password. That's your reset password. Why would
Yes.
you do that?
That's right. Make it
Okay.
as unique and easy to remember. Those are the gist.
Yeah.
Sorry sir, papalusutin ko lang tong last question na to because it's really interesting. Di po maiwasan o minsan maiwasan gumamit ng public wifi. Ano po bang maaring gawin para makasigurado na ligtas yung paggamit nito? So this would be the last question, sir.
Okay. For public Wi-Fi, uh, para makasiguro, don't use it. Because, okay, think about this. It only takes very small effort and minimal equipment to create a public Wi-Fi. You have a phone, you open hotspot, or you have a phone, you plug it in USB on your laptop, then you use USB tethering. So you're using the data from your phone, right? Just register. Data is cheap nowadays. And then on your laptop, you set up a hotspot and you just place free Wi-Fi. So what happens? Your laptop will now get all of the transmissions that anybody is connected to. They log into Facebook, they log into bank accounts, they do anything, they chat with anybody. You get a copy. You open Wireshark, you essentially get a copy that you could reassemble. Okay. So what if no choice? Kailangan na kailangan. You need to email something, you need to do bank transaction, whatnot. Wala kang data, yun lang. Nasa coffee shop ka. They have what we call mobile VPN. You get any one of those that is paid. Okay? Important thing here, paid, bayad. Wag, pag nagkuripot tayo, mayayari ka talaga. So, you get any one VPN paid, and then when you connect, you test the internet. Do not log in yet. You open the VPN, make sure the VPN is securely connected. That is when you start using the internet. After the connection and after doing the minimal thing that the required thing that you need to do, log out of the platform, disconnect the VPN. Make sure to disconnect the VPN before you disconnect the Wi-Fi. Because if you don't disconnect the VPN, you just leave it hanging, the session will be open. And some really, really creative people, walang magawa sa buhay. Some really creative people would be able to piggyback to that session because you left it open. You disconnect, they could impersonate you because they get your traffic. And it's not that hard to do if you try doing it like decades ago, maybe 10 to 20 years ago. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Sir Gerard. That's very informative, and I hope I'm sure maraming natutunan ng ating mga participants. There are still 200 plus sa ating Zoom and at the same time sa Facebook Live. So thank you for sticking with us. And again, thank you, Sir Gerard, for answering those questions. And para dun sa mga nagtanong din po ng mga questions, maraming salamat po. Back to you, Miss Joanna.
Thank you, Sir JJ and Sir Gerard, for helping out in our forum. I would like to call on Mr. Paul Alcala of the Digital Learners Project for his closing remarks. Let us all give him a clap emoji. Hello, Sir Paul.
Thank you, Joanna. On behalf of the Digital Learners Project team, I would like to thank everyone who participated in today's webinar session. We hope that everyone was able to capture lessons from today's topic, which is the first chapter of the Cisco webinar, which is the need for cybersecurity. And today's topic introduced us to the basic information on what should be considered as personal and organizational data, and how to ensure security of our sensitive information. We hope that through this lesson, all of us will be able to keep ourselves #cybersafe, especially amidst this global age. Having this said, we would like to also thank Mr. Gerard Ngo from our partner, Cisco Networking Academy, in leading today's discussion. Surely we'll be able to hear from him in our next session, which is on August 31st, where we'll tackle protecting your data and privacy. We'd also like to inform everyone to stay tuned on our Facebook page for more announcements on our upcoming webinar sessions. And we also hope to see everyone there as well. Again, on behalf of the Digital Learners Project, we thank everyone for attending today's Synchronous session.